Hey, this is Don from Padlock Technologies again with another video. This time we're going to talk about route-based style VPNs, hub and spoke topology on Cisco Secure Firewall. Hope you like the video background. It's ones and zeros, and if you're a computer person or a network person, you already know what that means. It's either on or it's off. But let's get to the whiteboard and let's do some theory first about the hub and spoke topology, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like in the lab. So, hub and spoke topology was in Cisco Secure platform before, but it was only for policy-based VPNs. And if you want to really think about policy-based VPNs, those are like the legacy style VPNs. Now, anything that has to do with a crypto map or anything like that, legacy style, I do not suggest anyone continue to use it unless you have an old platform like the ASA, and even those can do route-based VPNs on, I believe, 9.17 is when you can actually do that. Don't quote me on that though. But even if you have an ASA, I would probably move over to route-based style VPNs. So what does this look like in theory? So what you would do, let's say you have two data centers here. So DC1 and then DC2. You would position a FTD here. So that's our secure firewall, but you know, they used to call them FTDs, marketing, an FTD here, right? Now these would be hub 1, hub 2. All right, looks very familiar to like Flex VPN, DNVPN, stuff like that, right? Now your remote sites, we'll use blue. Your remote sites here, so site 1, site 2, 3, and 4, even though that's not a square, we're just going to say it is. You would have a FTD here. Depending on how big it is, you might do HA anyway. Doesn't really matter. And then you would have VTIs going to its respective hub, all right? And then you would do something like BGP over the top, all right? Again, if you know anything about DNVPN, Flex VPN, really doesn't matter what DNVPN version you're doing, pretty much the same design, right? You're just doing static tunnels. Well, DNVPN, you're going to do dynamic tunnels, but static VTIs in this situation and then BGP over the top. Say this would be 6.5 because you're going to do private ASNs. This one could be 65002 if you wanted to do that. And then each site would be 65003, 65004, 65005, and 65006. Now, you're going to advertise those routes to the data centers. But what you're not going to do is advertise the site specific prefixes back to the other sites. So you will not have communication between these devices here. So there not going to be any communication here site to site, right? Because let's be honest, if it's a branch site, do branches really need to talk to each other? Most likely no, right? So you're going to do a filterless here, and if you know anything about BGP and filterless, you're going to do a filterless, and you're going to use an AS path filter. Basically, the AS path filter is going to, I don't know why I almost put an A there, and that is completely wrong. So the AS path filter is actually going to look like this in it. Okay? Basically, it means no AS is in here, so I'm only going to advertise my local routes. That's basically what that means. So from the FTD at the hub perspective, you're going to do that filterless so that the only networks that are going to be advertised to the spokes are going to be data center networks. And that's really it. And that is route-based style VPN's hub and spoke topology in a nutshell from a theory standpoint. Now let's go into the lab and I can actually show you what it looks like on the FTD. So here we are at the lab here. And this is the mega lab, or not the mega lab, but this looks similar to what you've already seen before. And this used to be Palo. This used to be a Palo environment, but I switched everything out for FTDs. Again, don't just stay on one platform, learn another platform, right? Become proficient in another platform. FTDs are my bread and butter. Palo is something I'm proficient in, and then Fortinet is obviously something I'm also proficient in as well. But you guys seen all the other firewalls that I probably did. So what we have here is we have this main firewall right here, DC1 iNet. This is basically my hub. Then we have the HQ FTDs, HA pair. We have Florida, Chicago, New York, Wayne, Washington, Boston, Canada, right? The branch one is a transparent firewall, so this is not going to participate in that. So what's going to happen is everybody is going to be a spoke to this hub here, right? And then the hub is only just going to advertise 3 subnets that are in the data center, but it's not going to advertise the prefix that it gets from the respective branch sites, okay? So how do we do this? Well, let's go to the dashboard here. So in the dashboard, once you have everything set up, your layer 3, everything, configuration and all that good stuff. Now, in this example, I am going to utilize a base policy because my base policy is basically going to have the rule that says, route-based style zone to inside zone, vice versa, is going to be able to talk for anything. Again, from a security standpoint, don't do that in production because from a security standpoint, you just want to allow everything without any kind of inspection whatsoever. So don't do this. This is just a lab environment. Do not do this in production. So when we get to the devices here and we go to site, here are all my tunnels. So what you will see is here are all the spokes and hubs. All right, here's my hub. And then here are the spokes that are attached to that hub, right? As you can see, we're using static VTIs. I'm using a 192, not 192, a 169, 254, 100 slash, or 100 0/24, because this is private stuff. I don't really need to use an actual routable, and I'm saying quote, IP address, right? These are kind of private IP address. And the funny part is these are the same IP address kind of that you're going to get in secure access. So if you get secure access, they're going to use the same 169 254 address. Just look out for that for any of my secure access people out there. So from the setup perspective, you would pick your hub. I only have one hub. If I had 2 hubs, then you would see 2 hubs here, and then everything else is going to be a spoke, basically. Now, from the hub perspective, if you saw my video on Flex VPN, I'll put it up here because this is basically what it is. It's like Flex VPN, but only using firewalls. Again, I'll put it up here somewhere where you're going to have to borrow the interface. So you're going to have to create a interface on the hub like loopback, and then you're going to have to borrow that IP address for your static VTI. On the spokes, you don't have to do that. You can just create the static VTI without borrowing an interface that's already there. Once that's set up and running, it will go and create these tunnels dynamically to the hub. And then you'd have to go into your policy here. Now, this is route-based style, so there's no need for natting whatsoever. This is the benefit of route-based over policy VPNs, because since I'm doing route-based VPN, you can have an internet-facing router, like an internet firewall, and you don't have to worry about messing around with manual nets or anything like that because you're using routing instead of policy. So now, from an access control perspective, we're going to go to our base policy here. Everything is under the base policy. This is one of the benefits of using a base policy, because if you're pretty much going to set up everything the same, you don't really need to have individual policies, right? You do, but you don't have to create the same rule. Like if everybody's going to use the same rule, you can just put it in the base policy, and everything in that's a child to that base is going to just copy the policy. So if I go to my base policy here, you will see there is a rule called RB site to site, hub and spoke. And this is what I mean. Don't do this in production. Actually put some inspection and try to wean down what traffic actually needs to cross the VPN from a security standpoint. Once that's done and my tunnels are up, what we could do is we will go into site to site VPN. And as you can see, here's node A, which is the hub. So you'll see that multiple times. And then you'll see node B, which is all the spokes. Okay, so again, this is a great feature. From a Palo Alto perspective, you can do this in Palo Alto as well, but it's not as clean as in the FTD, from my opinion. Now, you ask a Palo guy, they're going to say something different, but from my opinion, these route-based style VPN hub and spokes, the setup and everything is pretty simple compared to the other vendors, so to speak. So this is what it's going to look like when everything is set up and all done. Now, we go to our site to site, and I'm gonna show you what that looks like when you try to create a new one. So there's an add button that you guys probably can't see because I'm stinting over it, but you hit the add button, and then it's gonna give you these four options. Now, one of the options you will not have if you do not integrate the FMC with Umbrella, which is this SASE topology. That will be grayed out if you don't put your like management keys, secrets, and all that good stuff. All the API keys that you would need in Umbrella. If you don't integrate your FMC with this, you will not see this. This will be grayed out. This is the policy-based VPN, so this is the old crypto map style. You see, you have hub and spoke, peer-to-peer, full mesh, and then you have your route-based where you have hub and spoke and peer-to-peer. You notice you don't have full mesh. That's not an option here. Okay. And then you have your SD-WAN topology, but that's another conversation. Once you do that, it'll look, again, something like this. And then you'll have your policies. No natting is involved in this. But since we have the policies there, we're good to go at that point. So what does that look like on the FTD, though? You know what? The other thing I did not show you is the routing. So let's get to that. So from a routing perspective, I'm only going to show you the DC firewall. So from a routing perspective, I'm running OSPF as well. So I have OSPF. It's an NSSA. And if you know anything about why I have an NSSA for this, is because I'm redistributing BGP into OSPF. You know anything about OSPF, you can only redistribute another protocol at the NSSA. Cannot do that in an ABR or anything like that because it has to be ASBR because that's the autonomous system border router. So that's why I made this an NSSA because I'm redistributing OSPF back into BGP. I mean, did that backwards. I'm redistributing BGP in the OSPF. So that's our redistribution here, right? That's our BGP routes for our hub and spoke. And then from a BGP standpoint, you need to turn it on. Obviously, that's what I'm doing. And then you need to specify your neighbors. So here's all my neighbors that I'm going over the top of my static VTI tunnels. I am also advertising these networks to everyone. And then from a filtering standpoint, or from a neighbor standpoint, let me show you what one of the neighbors look like. So one of the neighbors, I'm doing this AS path filter. So this is in normal router command. This will be neighbor, whatever the neighbor is, filter list one out. So that means I'm filtering, I'm only sending my local routes, right? Because you don't want the hub to become a transit, so to speak. And once that's all done, it will look like, I'm grab one of these DC nets. Come on, you. Let's try it again. All right, so from a routing perspective, let's go show route, BGP. Come on. This is where this is what probably going to think I typed BGP in twice. So from a BGP perspective, these are all the routes that are coming in from the other sites. So case in point, here's 10, 100, 2.0, there's 1.0. I didn't advertise 3 yet. There's 4, here's 5, here's 6, and here's 7. So that's what I'm getting from BGP, right? Now we go to one of these other sites and let's see what routes are we getting. Now we should only be getting the data center routes because I'm not advertising those routes from the hub back down to the spoke. And there you go. So these 3 routes are what I'm getting. So 172, 173, 174, I'm getting from the hub. I'm not getting any of the 10.100s, whatever, /24 routes. And just to validate that it is working, let me just make sure that server is not turned off, because that happened to me earlier, where for some reason the lab turned off, the AD server got turned off. So I'm going to ping 172, which is the AD server, and we have link. Now let's see if I went to this one on it, 10, 100, 2.1 should go nowhere, because that is technically my Florida office. And because my FTD doesn't know how to get there, there is no branch to branch communication. Okay. So that is route based site to site hub and spoke design in a nutshell. Hope you found this video informative. If you like more videos like this, don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. Repost it on your socials. Bring more people into the channel, because I like doing videos like this, and I'm getting questions about these type of designs and my opinions on things, and it's growing the channel a lot, and I really appreciate it. Again, subscribe, man. Just keep bringing people in. I really, really, really appreciate it. This is Don for Padlock Technologies. Again, thank you and have a nice day.